Jameson Williams, going 12th overall in the 2022 NFL Draft to the Lions. Last year was his rookie season, but we all know it wasn't really much of a rookie season, as 4 months before the 2022 NFL Draft, he tore his ACL against Georgia in the national championship. However, we were still able to see a glimpse of Williams last year. Starting off, he had a 41-yard touchdown reception all by himself, and we also were able to see a 65-yard touchdown from Jameson Williams, but sadly this one was called back due to a penalty. But notice how he stumbles and trips and is still able to easily outrun both of the Packers defenders. This man may be the fastest wide receiver in the NFL right now. I say I believe he's the fastest because he did run a 4.2 40, but I don't think it was an official 40, and he wasn't able to participate in the combine, and that was because of his injury. But he says if he wasn't injured and he was 100% healthy, he would have set the record for the 40, and I believe it. Regardless of what his 40 time actually is, all you gotta know is that Jameson Williams is freakishly fast. That's all you gotta know. One of the fastest players in the NFL right now, and maybe one of the fastest of all time. Let's move on. You're still here? Let me guess, you see me put up a clip of the Lions against the Packers, and you're expecting me to slander the cheeseheads as I've always done whenever I talk about the Packers. Well, in that case, I bet you'd be quite surprised to learn that I've changed. I have a new outlook on life due to the experience I had recently, and it just made me think, why would I ever hate Aaron Rodgers and the Packers? I spent a long time thinking and doing multiple psychedelics, sitting there pondering the idea of why would I hate on such a franchise? Why would I hate the Packers? Why would I hate Aaron Rodgers? Sure, the refs have helped the Packers numerous times, helped Aaron Rodgers tons of times, hurt the Lions a good amount of times, but in the end, none of it matters because I came to the realization that Aaron Rodgers is the GOAT. Think about it, since 2005, who has started the most games as quarterback for the Packers? It's Aaron Rodgers. It's not even close, and I think that fact alone solidifies Aaron Rodgers as one of the quarterbacks of all time. Who else is 0-4 against the Niners in the playoffs? Who else has 4 MVPs but only 1 Super Bowl championship? I mean, come on. He is one of the quarterbacks of all time. I really suggest that all of you go through the same thing, do the same experience that I did. It's called a darkness retreat. I know you haven't heard of it. It's kind of crazy, but you go to this room for 3 straight days. You just sit there and think, and it changed everything for me. You'd have DMT experiences, you go crazy. It's quite amazing. Anyway, long story short, I'm no longer hating on the Packers. So we know that Jameson Williams is a great wide receiver, or he should be, and he's extremely fast. We only saw him play in the NFL with those 2 catches, one of them was called back, and he played quite a few snaps against the Bears at home this past season. He had 1 run play, and he took off on that one and really showed his speed once again. My question today is, what are Jameson Williams' expectations? What's the high end of his expectations? What's the low end? How should he perform? How many numbers should he put up this season? If we look where Jameson Williams was drafted, we'll notice that there was 3 wide receivers drafted before him. Looking at the 8th pick of the draft, Drake London was drafted by the Falcons. Looking at the 10th pick in the draft, Garrett Wilson was drafted by the Jets. And looking at the 11th pick in the draft, Chris Olave went to the Saints. So before we put our expectations on Williams, let's look at how the 3 players before him played in their rookie season. First up, let's look at Drake London. Now, I think it's important to note who was throwing this wide receiver the ball and how good that offense was. The Atlanta Falcons had one of the bottom 10 offenses last season, so not the best. And Marcus Mariota, pretty good passer, but not the best, but not the worst. Drake London played in all 17 games, had 117 targets with 72 receptions, 866 yards with 4 touchdowns. London was instantly wide receiver 1 in Atlanta, leading the team in targets, receptions, yards, and touchdowns. Next up, we have Garrett Wilson, who also managed to solidify himself as the wide receiver 1 for his team. Now, Garrett Wilson had Mike White throwing him the ball, Joe Flacco, Zach Wilson, 3 different quarterbacks, and he still managed to put up 1,100 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 83 receptions. The Jets also had a lower tier offense. Next up, Chris Olave had Andy Dalton throwing him the ball, 1,000 yards, 4 touchdowns, 72 receptions. Again, pretty good, solidifying himself as the wide receiver 1. So each of these 3 wide receivers drafted before Jameson Williams had over 100 targets, almost around 1,000 yards, I'd say, and 4 touchdowns. Now, before I'm going to give my expectations for Williams, let's look at one more thing. Let's look at how the Lions spread the ball last season. Now, the Lions won't have DJ Chark and no longer have Hawkinson. But as you can see, the Lions like to spread the ball, and they also have a lot more targets as they're an extremely talented offensive team. They're on the offensive side of the ball a lot. And obviously, as you can see, first down St. Brown led the team with targets, yards, and receptions. Now, looking at this, my guess is that Amon-Ra St. Brown again next year is gonna lead the team in all the categories. But I think Jameson Williams is going to be right behind him, maybe even passing him in yards or touchdowns maybe, but not targets and receptions. I say Williams might surpass Amon-Ra in yards, as Jameson Williams is going to really stretch the field, and Williams is going to have hopefully a lot of those big 40-50 yard catches, and Amon-Ra isn't going to have as many of those. But I think Amon-Ra is going to stay more as that third down, second down reliable target, as his catch percentage is insane. 106 receptions on only 146 targets. And of course, we have to give some of that credit to Goff making those good throws. And before I make my expectations, I think it's good to look at this one more time. Now, I know this isn't the best thing to look at, but I think it gives you some idea of how your rookie should perform in their first year. But it's hard because all these teams have different quarterbacks, different offensive strategies, and they were instantly the best wide receiver on all these teams. Jameson went to the Lions. There's a lot of offensive wide receiver talent on the Lions. So with the Lions liking to spread the ball around, having first down St. Brown, Swift out of the backfield, Raymond, I think a good expectation for Williams is to have 70 to 90 targets on the season, hopefully 50 to 70 receptions, 800 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Now, I put 1,000 in parentheses because I think Williams is capable of having an even bigger season, maybe over 1,000 yards easily, but my low end would be I want him to have at least 800 yards. I think that's fair. I think J-Mo has a lot of talent. I think he has an extremely high ceiling. I could see him setting insane records, in my opinion, at least, but I don't think he's gonna have too crazy of a season just because of all the talent in Detroit right now. The Lions are able to spread the ball because they have a lot of different talent to throw to, and that's why I think at least 800 yards, hopefully over 1,000. I think he's going to be in that area. But if you've been watching my videos for a while, you know that Williams is my favorite Lion right now. He's been my favorite Lion. I have super high expectations for him. I think he's going to be crazy, and I'm trying to be realistic. I really wanted to say like something crazy, like 1,500 yards and all that shit, but you know, you just had to use my brain a little bit. Couldn't let my bias get in the way this time. And regarding rushing, we saw Amon-Ra St. Brown get used quite a bit last season out of the backfield, 9 attempts for 95 yards. So I think it'd be good to say for J-Mo maybe 6 or 7 attempts and around 100 yards. Now that might be too aggressive, but you never really know. They could use J-Mo more, they could use Amon-Ra more, they could split touches out of the backfield for him. It's not like they're gonna be doing it 3-4 times every game, but I think that J-Mo's gonna have that one explosive run out of the backfield for 50 or 60 yards, and then a few other 10-yard gains or 20-yard gains. I think it's safe to say he should have 100 yards rush. In the end, I'd say my prediction / hope for J-Mo is probably 1,000+ yards. I think that's easily obtainable, and I think has a high chance of happening, but my bottom level of what I'll be satisfied with is at least 800 yards. Maybe 750, but below that, I'm kind of like, man, unless he's just playing bad, but I think there's a lot of potential there that the Lions should use him, and they will use him. The only reason I think it'd be low is if A, he's playing bad, which I hope doesn't happen, B, he gets injured, which I really hope won't happen, and I don't think either of those will happen, or C, the Lions are just spreading the ball around a ton and winning. If they're winning and not giving him many targets, I guess just keep going. I think 70 to 90 targets is a pretty fair assessment. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 146 last season. I don't think he's gonna have that many once again this upcoming season. And last year, the wide receiver 2 for Detroit, Raymond, had 64 targets. I think next year that's going to be J-Mo, and it's going to go up a bit, so it's going to be in the 70 to 90 range, taking some targets from Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now, the last thing I want to say about J-Mo is I like how he dresses. I really like his style. Now, it might sound weird, But I think just how he dresses and how his style is with his uniform is just sick as fuck. Whenever I pick a favorite player or like an athlete in any sport, for some reason, I don't know why, but it matters how they dress, how their style is, I guess. And I think J-Mo just looks sick as fuck. My number one thing for football players to do is the baggy long sleeves. J-Mo rocks that. Not many players do, I feel like. And I think it looks sick as fuck. And the oversized long sleeves or short sleeves, whatever it is, or sweatshirt coming out the bottom of the jersey. Also, I think it's just I think that's just sick as fuck. And for my favorite player, my favorite positions are wide receiver and defensive back. So my favorite players are always going to be one of those usually. So let me know what you think. How is J-Mo going to perform next year? What are the expectations? What's the high end? What's the low end? What is the bare minimum you'd like to see from J-Mo? Anyway, that's going to be the end of this video. If you guys enjoy my content, I would really appreciate if you could like and subscribe. It really helps me out a lot. And once again, thanks for watching. And I bet a lot of you thought I was going to leave you hanging. I lied. Fuck the Packers.
Man, fuck the Packers. You fuck.